feel like people are gonna be so mad at me for saying this.
Please.
Oh, man, no, I'm not gonna say it. I need to say it filtered.
On,
I have church on Sunday, bro. So when I was dating Sarah, oh man, I'm so sorry, Mom. Well, we want to welcome everybody to our Work Week podcast. We are back. We have been on a break for a little while. I had a kid. Our producer, Michael Falabi, had a kid. And speaking of kids, we're going back to where it all started. We're talking today about dating culture, Christian dating culture, what that looks like. And so we're so excited. I got Mr. Juan Urrutia here with me. And we also have Alexia with us.
Hello.
You can't see her. But she is here. She's going to be checking to make sure that we are keeping truthful and honest with our statistics and different things like that, and maybe cracking a joke or two. But yeah, let's just jump right into this. We want to talk about dating culture. There's so many things that are out there. People use apps for dating now. I don't know if blind dating is a thing anymore, but I'm sure it is. People used to do like these dating roulette things where they would show up and like you got to shuffle partners and do these like speed dating type things. And so we want to talk about personal experience first to start off today. And so, you're in your 20s. What does dating look like for you in your 20s? I'm 33. And so it looks different for me when I was dating than it does for you now.
Yeah. I would say at least for me, dating has been kind of weird in the fact of like maneuvering through like different apps. Obviously in the prime time of like when I was supposed to, like when I started wanting to date, I'm still in my prime time, but you get what I mean. But 2020 happened, nothing was happening. Everyone was like stuck at home. And you got bored. You're trying to figure out life and maneuver through a pandemic while also like not doing anything at all. Yeah. So you kind of like want to talk to people, try to figure things out.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Dating apps were never like a thing that I was like super into. I feel like I got kind of like not pushed into something, but it was like there was no other way to go talk to somebody during 2020. So that's something that I maneuvered through, and it was very odd to say the least. That's for sure.
So here's the thing, like, and Alexa, you can chime in too because you're younger than I am as well. But like, if you during the pandemic last 2 years and you were on a dating app, you weren't able to like necessarily like go and date people. But like if you were communicating, like what do you define like as dating, right? So like if you met somebody and you started to like exchange enough like DMs or texts or whatever, like especially not being able to like interact or face to face with them, would that like constitute dating for you? Or would that be like I'm like the term that we used to use when I was your guys' age was like we're talking, which I don't even know what that term means anymore.
Yeah.
But like what does that look like in terms of dating and dating apps? Like after a first date, are you guys like now dating, or is it like you're dating multiple people at the same time? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, the way I define it for myself, and obviously there's no clear answer. People are going to do it the way that they want to. But for me, at least, you go on the first date, and then if the second date happens, and after that you start kind of establishing like what it looks like. I'm a very intentional person in that sense, where it's like it would take a really long time, I guess, like a couple of weeks worth of talking, exchanging stuff, seeing like where we're at and what we're trying to do. Yeah. And then from there, meeting face to face, obviously during a pandemic where everyone's trying to be super safe and stuff. Yeah. And that was like, all right, we made it to the first date. After this, like if it goes well, then if there's a second one.
So two date minimum.
I would say for me.
Alexia, what about you? 2 date minimum? More than 2 dates?
I don't know if I can say from this just because I don't have as much experience with dating apps. And as we were going into quarantine, I was already dating someone by that time. So I luckily was going into that like 2-year shutdown with having someone by my side. And I mean, we were constantly together, right? So I can't imagine for you, Juan, how that must have been, or anyone else trying to meet other people online and not really getting where you want to be.
Yeah. So let's just talk about this for a second because I'm just very curious. We're gonna dive in here. It's gonna get funny probably. Let's do it. So like after 2 dates, like so like let me just paint this picture real quick. Dinner, coffee, whatever those looks like. Then it's like after 2 date. When I mean by 2 date minimum is that like all of a sudden now like we are officially like dating as like a boyfriend girlfriend couple. And then it's like after the 2 dates and like what else comes with that? Like we can hold hands, we can kiss. Like what does that like definition look like? Because at least for me, like it looked a lot different than it does now for you guys. So like Are you saying like 2-date minimum? So like it has to be at least 2 dates.
Yeah, I would say like 2-day minimum until like I'm exclusive, like I'm turning off everything.
But even for like a complete stranger, like someone that you just met through an app.
Yeah, I would say, because again, I did my due diligence. First of all, I only went on like 2 like actual first dates like during that the whole of 2020 and 2021. So just to make that clear, like it took me a couple, like at least a month before I even considered like, yo, we should meet up or talk about this stuff. So I was like very picky on that sense as well. But then when it comes to that stuff, I guess to what you're saying, how like when you decide to be boyfriend, girlfriend, stuff like that, like I'm at a point in my life where I'm very concerned as far as like how to maneuver through that. So like for me, it's just talking everything out.
Yeah.
What is cool? What is okay? Do you want to hold hands? Can we kiss? What
do I have your permission?
What does that look like? Yeah,
this?
no, that's what I'm saying, man. Like I want to make sure that people are comfortable.
Yeah.
And I would respect it if people were like that with me too. You know what I mean?
See, so it's super different for me because when I was growing up, in my house, my parents, you know, we can call them, I will call them conservative, but like I don't think they like fall into that category necessarily on all levels. But like we weren't able to date until we turned 16. And when I was 16, it was kind of like the floodgates open and I was able to start dating people. Dating apps were like not even a thing. Like when I was 16 years old, I think like MySpace was just a thing like to start off. And so any communication you had with people that were like of the opposite sex was either through MySpace, like direct messaging, or it was like text messages.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, most of the interactions were like face to face. And so for me, it was like, and the people that you were networking with or interacting with wasn't somebody that was like living in another city, county, or even another state. It was like people that you grew up around. So like I asked the question like a complete stranger, because 9 times out of 10 for me, at least, the people I dated, like I had already known.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the 2-date minimum for us made me feel more comfortable in like accepting this individual or this person as a girlfriend, because like I already knew them. I feel like now, and like Falabi's wife does this and my wife does this, is like they like do deep dives. They like Snoop Doggy Dog on people on Facebook, on
professional
on
snoopers,
Instagram, on different places. And I feel like your generation, like you almost have to do that.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't know somebody and like there's only a number of things or like a small percentage of things that you can put like in a bio on like a Hinge or like on Tinder or anything like that, like you can't really trust that. And so like if I was you guys, like I'd be like looking them up like on like databases, like a police database or something like that, you know, because you don't know who these people are.
And I guess the way that the apps are maneuvering into stuff like that is like, one, you can verify your account where they can prove that you are the actual person. They have like the face AI or whatever. You have to like take a picture with a specific pose, and then they're able to prove that it's you. You can link your Instagram, you can link your Spotify, you can link like everything basically about you.
See, that's interesting.
To kind of prove who you are.
I feel like people my age and older are a little bit more skeptical because we also like lived in like the era of catfish. Like, I don't know if you guys ever watched that show or like the Facebook thing where like people were like pretending to be other people.
Yeah.
And so I think even for me, like I've been married, I'll be married 9 years in July, have 3 kids. Like if my wife were to ever, and God forbid this would ever happen, I always tell Sarah, and she's probably going to hate me for saying this, like I hope I go first. So that way, you know, she can live with that misery without me and not vice versa. But like if she were to die before me, like I don't know what I would do. Like I can barely understand like certain apps and programs that are even out there now, and I'm only 33. Like I would dread even having to do that, because I think my generation is more skeptical of like those like technologies and trying to like trust that the person that you're sitting across is who they actually are on this app. Like for me and Sarah, like her brother like dropped her off in front of my house and like pushed her out of the car and was like, ask Sarah to be your girlfriend. Like that's how this happened. And like that doesn't happen in this day and age where people are like hanging out, group dating, going to movies. In fact, the statistic in my generation when I was getting ready to go into college, which would have been 2007, there was a stat that was released that was like got everyone shook. That was like you are 60% less likely to find your person after you graduate college or after you graduate high school, because some people don't go to college. And so most people in my generation are like, shoot, I got to find somebody before I graduate high school or college. Otherwise, like I have only like a 40% chance of finding somebody.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, statistically now, like, I don't know what that stat is, but yeah, like it's a different dynamic now. Like online dating is insane.
Yeah.
And there's so many apps out there. Like, is there a favorite app that people have? Like, do you have a favorite app?
I mean,
which we're not sponsored by them, by the way. Anyway, like if like we can say what they are.
I would say like the top 3 as far as relevance in my age group. From this standpoint, as far as from what I've seen, is probably just like Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble. But I'm sure they're like specific, or more specific, like apps.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Awesome. Cool. Alexia, do you want to chime in here before we go on to the next one?
No, or I mean, other than that, with statistics going off of apps, we did some research on that, and the highest one is Bumble, and then it goes Tinder, and I forgot the last one, but those are the highest used from people that are 18 to 30.
Wow.
And by the way, Bumble, the woman chooses first, so the woman they get to pick who they talk to or not. And they've also pivoted on their standpoint as well, where they have Bumble friends. So if you're looking for friends, that's where you can find friends now.
That's the best way to find a girlfriend or boyfriend, I think, is a friendship first.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point, because we're talking about like the nitty gritty here.
Yeah.
No, what's interesting is in my research, I found that more guys actually use online dating apps than women, which is interesting, but also kind of like, I hate to put it this way, but it's also kind of like, seems kind of sketch, because it seems like more guys are trying to date than like girls are. I feel like girls are probably more inclined, because they're women, to like try to do things in a safe way, because they don't want to be taken advantage of or anything like that. And so it's super strange to me. Like when I was in college, the only dating app that was kind of circulating around at that time was like late 2008 was Christian Mingle, which was Christian Mingle, if you're watching, it was such a ripoff. Like, it was so funny. We had this guy in my hall who did Christian Mingle like the first 2 weeks for free, and then they charged him like $1,000 over the course of a year. So it was like $100 a month, which was ridiculous, and it was so crazy. But anyway, that's besides the point. So we want to jump into like this next discussion point where we're talking about biblical stuff. So like, what do we do? What do we refer to when something isn't necessarily black and white in the Bible, like dating? Like, we have some people who are more conservative, especially parents and people who have children, who will say like, oh, only group dating or only holding hands. In fact, if you watch TLC, which I'm dating myself again, there's like there's this whole like segment about people being virgins and like also like never kissing people. And so they have like their wedding day, and it seems like the man is just completely like eating this woman's face when he kisses her, because they've never kissed before. So it's like crazy. But like, what does that look like now? Like in terms of dating, like when you don't know like what to do or like how to do it, in terms of dating, like what are some resources or things or people that you look to be helpful in that, to help answer questions or do things for you?
I mean, I have a good set of people around me like that kind of help maneuver through all of that. And I think from what I've learned, even talking with those groups of people, is just like positioning yourself in a way that basically, nothing can go wrong. So like for me, I will talk forever about like, what is cool, what is okay, how can we do this in a way that respects both of our ideologies and what we believe in, and walking in the most like safe way possible through this, navigating through this relationship, essentially. Yeah,
I think the biggest thing that we realized, like even when I was growing up and dating and before I was married, like hookup culture was a very like real thing, and I think it still is now. Obviously, before when I was in the dating scene, most of like and we talk about hookup culture not just in terms of sex, but also just in terms of like serial dating. Like people, it seemed like a lot of my friends had a different girlfriend like every other week, and vice versa. And so when I was growing up, it was like I met this person at the club, met this person at the bar, or it was at a party, or just different things like that. And so like as a Christian, for us, like we believe in obviously like marriage, and if we're gonna date, there's a purpose to dating, and it's not simply just to satisfy a need or even like a lack. Because I feel like even now, some people who are single, and if you're single and you're watching this, they think that they have a deficit in their lives as a result of not having somebody that cares for them, or someone that they're dating, or a significant other. But we know that as long as you have God, like you have everything that you need, and that a marriage or a relationship is only supposed to be like supplemental to the relationship that you have with God. And so, hookup culture is very real. And when I was growing up, it was like I said, like there wasn't necessarily like a serial dating, or like even having different sexual partners within like a dating app. It was like, again, I went out for a weekend and I hooked up with somebody. And so something that we try to instill in people is realizing that there is a function to dating. It's not just to satisfy urges or satisfy lack, but it's to ultimately end up in a marriage or like marriage relationship. What are your feelings about that specifically?
I think for me, I was reading a couple of studies last night in regards to this, and a lot of it comes down to like motive for dating. You know, obviously some people are looking for their partner to, you know, for life, obviously. That's like the hope for everyone, but some people are in it just for hooking up, and then other people are also just in it for self-esteem reasons. That was a big factor in like a lot of this stuff, what the self-esteem is of the person. They were saying in a study that was made, they said they discovered that highly sociable people who also have high self-esteem are more likely to use internet dating than highly sociable people with low self-esteem when they consider romantic relationships to be of importance. So the results suggest that those with higher self-esteem have more confidence in their ability to find companion through online or mobile dating.
Wow.
Another finding from the study shows that highly sociable people with low self-esteem used internet dating more than those with high self-esteem when romantic relationships were not as vital to them.
Yeah.
So a lot of it comes down to like how you feel about yourself and where you're going and all that stuff. So
yeah, I also think too, like if I can just interject, and this might just be surely opinion for me, like I and again, there's no judgment here. Like we as a church, we believe that if people have had sex outside of marriage or have done these things, that there's grace for them and that God will forgive them if they repent from those things. But I feel like whether you're a believer or like a non-believer, like the thought of, you know, if you end up in a dating relationship with somebody and you get to a place where like you eventually want to get married to that individual, I feel like, at least for me specifically, like if the thought was that this person sort of was like serial hooking up with people or dating, and like they had like a tremendous amount of partners prior to like being with me, that might be something that would be difficult for me to get over in terms of like getting into a relationship with me. Not to say that God can't forgive and God can't redeem those things.
Yeah.
But I do think that people oftentimes don't realize the consequence, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, that comes as a result of people just like perceiving dating or perceiving relationships with people could have if it's simply just physical and just to fulfill like a need or satisfy a low self-esteem in that regard. So at this time, we're going to have our hot take segment. If you didn't know what hot take is, we're just going to talk about a random hot take. I was thinking about this all week, and this is my hot take. Pineapple doesn't belong on a pizza. That's my hot take. If you have pineapple on a pizza, my wife is going to hate me for this because she loves pineapple on pizza. It doesn't belong. The sweet on like a pepperoni pizza, she does pepperoni pineapple, disgusting. So my hot take is that. I don't know if you have one.
I do have one. Lakers are winning the championship next year. Kyrie's coming to Lakers. We're doing a trade package. We're going to try to get KD if we can somehow, by a miracle of God. Please, if
that's not a hot take. That's a hot fake. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
That's going to happen. Just wait.
No,
just wait.
The Lakers can only win in the bubble, but that's for another podcast.
No.
LeBron's too old. They're like a retirement home over there in Los Angeles.
I believe.
Mine was a hot take. That was a hot fake. This is a work week podcast.
We drafted properly. We're maneuvering ourselves in a better way.
So let's talk about a little bit. Sorry, that was just a little sidetrack, but I just felt like we needed to interject that for a second. We had a question about how Christians should be dating, how people should be dating. I think for me, it's about setting a foundation for success. And I know that people are going to make mistakes and things are going to happen, but I think that it's very important that people set themselves up for success, like you alluded to earlier, where you have accountability, you have people that you can rely upon for advice as you're encountering things. For me and my wife, like even now as a married couple, you never stop dating. And for us, we have people that we can go to when we're dealing with difficulties within our marriage that will help uplift us and give advice that speak into that. And in that same way, I think it's good to set up a foundation for that in dating relationships too as well, because you're going to encounter all sorts of things. People come from different families, different ethnic backgrounds, different traditions, different stuff. And so being able to navigate through some difficulties as two people are coming together, I think is super important to have sort of like a solidified team that's going to help you with that.
What's your opinion of the one, and have you met the one?
The one. Have you met the one?
The one.
The one. The one, the one, the one.
I mean,
Have you met the one?
I think I might have, man.
No. Yes or no? Have you met the one?
I wish I could confirm that. Honestly, the way God moves though, like whatever my expectations are about something, God always comes in clutch and has always been like, yo man, if you think this is good, just wait till what comes later. And usually what comes later is better than what I imagined.
Have you met the one? I know there's so many people out there right now that don't believe in this notion. And for me, I think in my youth, I didn't believe that. I think as a young man and as different things happen in your life, you slowly, especially when you're a Christian, you slowly start to make the transition from lustful thinking to understanding what love is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like for most people, like when we talked about in the earlier part of this podcast, where it's like they're serial dating or trying to like hook up culture, it's like, how can I get the most attractive, the most the best personality, whatever, and then like you kind of are like a kid in a candy shop where like you want to like just like continually try to find better. As I got older, like I made a decision and I told God, I was like, I want to go all in the next relationship that I'm a part of, and it was Sarah. And I truthfully believe Sarah's my person. Like I truthfully believe that if we believe in God's will and we believe that God has a plan for everybody, I believe that she was my person and she was the one for me. She checked every box. And that's not to say that if you find the one, if you're here and you're waiting for the one because you think your life is just gonna be perfect after, me and Sarah fight all the time. Like we argue, we get into disagreements, but the thing that makes that person the one is being able to navigate despite your differences, despite your opinions, and ultimately like love each other at the end of the day. And so yeah, I believe in the 100%.
Yeah.
And if you haven't found that one, maybe you need to like just take a pause and stop like trying all the apps all the time and just wait on God, like, and allow him to like open a door for you to find that person, to find your person.
I like that.
Alexia.
Okay, so I have a few questions from people that have given Christian advice, and I just want to ask you guys, what's your take on it?
Okay.
So the first one is date for at least a year.
I would say putting a time frame on stuff just adds so much more stress to what you're trying to do. I feel like if you know what you want and your partner knows what they want and it's going in the direction that you guys are both been praying for and been actively, like proactively searching for, like I don't see why you need to even date for a year.
Yeah, I think for me, when I started dating Sarah, I was 20. The first time I started dating her, I was 16. Obviously, at 16 years old, like, I'm not getting married after a year. Like, I'm still in high school. And then in my 20s, my early 20s, I was still like in the middle of like my college stint. And so at that juncture of my life, like that was sort of the timeline I gave myself to date at least a year, because I wanted to see sort of where those relationships or where that relationship was going to go. I think now on the back end of it, now that I'm 33, if somebody was like in their late 20s or even like older and like at the tail end of college or the tail end of whatever, and like they were sort of positioned themselves for like a marriage relationship, I'd say like, listen, like if this makes sense, like if God is speaking to you and saying this is your person, like why wait a year? Like to me, I've known people who have met their significant other and 6 months later they're married. And I don't think that there's a cookie cutter timeline or time frame. And also like women that are out there, all women of America and beyond, whoever's watching this podcast, when you give a girl a timeline, like you better hold to that timeline. Like I told Sarah that we were going to get engaged after a certain point, and that month came and went, and I caught fire for it. And it was like horrible. And all the while I had the engagement ring in my glove box in my car. And like one time we were in the car and she's like, we're never going to get married. We had just got done with like a wedding. She's like, we're never going to get married. We're just going to be dating forever. Like, why are we doing this? And in my mind, I'm like, rings in my glove box.
Dang.
And the time frame came and went because I was trying to set up this elaborate engagement, this whole thing or whatever.
Wild. In the glove box, bro.
But like, yeah, don't give timelines. Like, if you have a timeline, keep it to yourself, man. If you have a timeline, keep it to yourself. Don't get yourself in trouble. Anyway, any other questions? Any other hot takes for us?
Another one was spending time together. How much do you utilize that and take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think balance is the word. I think balance and discipline. I've seen some couples that like are completely inseparable. And like, don't get me wrong, like I love my wife. I love her to pieces. She's my favorite person that I like to spend time with, even when we're dating. I mean, yeah, like I enjoy spending time with her, but self-care is such a huge thing. And I think in our society, especially for those that feel like they're lacking something as a result of not having a relationship, and then they get in one. It's like, I want to spend every waking hour with this person. You realize that you're like actually not taking care of yourself in the process, like getting the rest that you need, getting like your time alone, being able to sort of like just decompress even, because like as you're navigating things, like you need to take care of yourself so that way you can be the best version of yourself for that individual too as well. So I think self-care is huge. I think there's a balance that needs to take part, because you also start to lose yourself too.
Yeah. No, it's really difficult. I think especially for people in my age and demographic of people that are working full-time, going to school full-time, things like that. I would say being intentional with your time and making time to, hang out with your significant other will mean the world. But then also you can't neglect, like you were saying, you can't neglect yourself and your own needs and what you need to do in order to one, rest and just be able to give, the 100% of yourself to your partner when you are with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it goes back to balance. I've seen the other side of the spectrum where people are like in a relationship, but you would never know because like, they're like, oh, well, they're just there. And again, I think kind of goes back to like that hookup mentality where it's like that relationship has become a fixture and not like not an actual thing. Yeah. And so it's just for the appearances, but not for appearances and not for application. Right. It's like, this is something that's like, I'm going to apply and use because I want to get married. It's just for appearances. And so people care so much about themselves. I heard one pastor say, love is you before me. And so serving each other, serving one another, but also taking care of yourself in the process, I think is huge.
I like
Any other questions from the gram?
Yeah. So the other one was dating a bunch of people and figuring out how that works.
Man. That was crazy.
I know somebody, I won't name them, but they're going to watch this and they're going to know who they are 100%. who anyway, so my personal opinion is I think that dating is a tool that is necessary and useful in finding your person and finding how compatible you are with somebody, and being able to navigate that in order to get married. I do think that it's not fair to be dating multiple people at the same time, especially if your intention is to get married, because then I feel like you start to like lead people on.
Yeah.
People get hope and all these different things, and then it's like they find out that you're dating other people.
Yeah.
I think like if anything, dating people one at a time is probably the best practice for sure. Agree. And I think the intent has to be marriage, in my opinion.
Yeah. People that be dating multiple people at a time, y'all are wild for that. First of all, I can't handle more than one person at a time, by the way. And that's crazy. And like you'll see this stuff like, man, I'm on a crazy side of TikTok, but these people be talking about like, yeah, I got lunch with this guy at 12. I got lunch with this guy at I have a dinner at 7, and then we're gonna go get drinks at like 9 or something.
That's
like that.
So
like
crazy.
I can't, like, you're making a whole schedule.
It's so crazy because I feel like we've never been more connected, and so it's like you're gonna get found out.
No, yeah.
So like I don't understand, like people think that, like I feel like it was easier to get away with that sort of thing when I was younger.
Yeah.
Then now it's like, and especially with like, because of the dating network, I feel like if you're on a dating app, like you've said this even before, like on dating apps, we're like, oh, I came across so-and-so.
Oh yeah.
That like we all know.
Yeah. The old high school people.
And
high
it's
school,
like, so like you come
he's
across
single?
these people.
Right, let's
so then like what happens is like, you know that they're out there dating and doing
yeah.
stuff. It's like you get seen at a restaurant, you get seen in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And like if you're seen with like a different girl every time, like that starts to get circulated and you build a reputation.
Exactly.
Yikes.
That's not the way.
Alexia, I feel like you have something else.
Yeah. What dating advice would you give to your kids?
Don't ever date. I have 3 kids. I have two boys and I have a little girl. And I think that for me, me and Sarah have been talking about this, and it terrifies me because things I feel like have gotten so much more complicated today than they were. I mean, the last time I dated was 12 years ago now, which was Sarah. So like, man, I was 21 years old. Yeah. So I'm old. A lot of stuff has changed. And it's so funny. My dad's going to hate me for saying this. My dad, I'm the only son, and that sort of advice from my dad was like, yeah, go get like these like smoking hot girls and like make sure like, you know, the girl that you're going to get like, you know, comes from a good family and all these different things. And like, you know, you're going to have like you know, like he used to joke about a lot of these things, but some of it was true, like about being successful and just different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like I want my kids to find love and to be happily married, but because of how crazy things are in our world, like I don't even know what I would say to them. Like, you know, protect yourselves.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. Like, make sure that when you are gonna do these types of things, that like, and you're gonna date, that it's like for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people in my personal life, but also as a pastor, because we have a lot of people that we're networked and connected with that have been so burned and hurt because of relationships done wrong.
Yeah.
It would devastate me to see my kids walk through what some of these people have had to walk through. My little girl, man, I just wish I can have her forever and never have her have to deal with guys. And I say this as a guy. I was not always the best person to be dating. And I know that I've done wrong. And so I'm like, if someone does my little girl wrong, there's no place that they can hide.
Yeah. No, for real. And I would say, at least for me, I don't have kids yet, but when I do, I think obviously leading with respect, that being the main foundation of everything, respecting women, respecting, you know, don't you dare let her ever open a door. Yeah. Things like that. And then obviously, I think it'll just be years, kind of like the talk on birds and the bees and getting through that. It's just even with dating, it's going to become a more complex, multiple conversations as far as like, man, you got to prepare, you got to be ready for like when this stuff happens, how to maneuver through this, like heartbreak and feelings being hurt and all of that stuff is a part of dating and doing all that stuff. So like letting them know what it is and how it can happen and kind of giving them a blueprint as far as like how you can maneuver through this. I think
it's a good question that you brought up too, because I feel like even for like the non-believer, I say non-believer, sorry, I'm using terms that people probably don't understand. People who don't believe in God or don't believe in faith. Yeah. Like, I think that's such a good perspective to have, because I think that like when you think as an individual, like I can just do whatever I want with my body, with a dating relationship, whatever. Like it's easy to make those assertions when you're just thinking like as an individual or like you're being egocentric, like just thinking about yourself. But when you start to think about if you don't have kids or you do have kids, you start to think about the potential of your kids or future kids having to endure things that you had to or having to endure things that you did to other people that you knew were wrong. It starts to change your perspective, I think, at least of dating, because I've burned girls, and I'm sorry. If I burned you, I'm sorry. Yeah. But I burned girls in my youth, and to think of another guy treating my daughter in the future that way, it makes me mad. It breaks my heart. Yeah. And it puts things into perspective, like why God initially created like relationship and marriage. Yeah. And it was for those purposes. So that's a good perspective to have. Do we have any others?
What's the best dating advice you've ever gotten?
The best dating advice I've ever gotten.
I could tell you a couple.
Go ahead.
Nothing good happens after 10 p.m.
That's good.
Try not to be alone.
I mean, fireworks after 10.
Yeah, once a year, 4th of July. That's it. 4th of July and New Year's. I mean, dating groups has always been really good because you can, you know, maneuver through that, kind of show your intentionality, things like that. And then being careful in what situations you're alone with the person is also really important. Yeah.
I think the best dating advice I ever received, this is so inappropriate to say.
Let it go. Let it rip.
I feel like people are gonna be so mad at me for saying this.
Please.
Oh, man, no, I'm not gonna say it. I need to say a filter. I have church on Sunday, bro. So when I was dating Sarah, oh man, I'm so sorry, Mom. When I was dating Sarah,
it's coming.
I had a mentor of mine. His name is Dennis Patton. Shout out to Dennis. He's a clinical psychiatrist in Santa Cruz. Psychiatrist in Santa Cruz. I had such bad commitment issues. Like to make the jump from like dating Sarah to marrying Sarah, it was like terrifying. And this is what Dennis said. Dennis said, "You need to crap or get off the pot," is what he told me.
Okay, that's not that bad.
That's not that bad, but people are going to be so upset because I said that. I'm so sorry to all my people. I'm sorry. And what he was basically saying, and he followed it up with some very profound and biblical things. Yeah. But he said, like, you have a girl that loves God. You have a girl who's going in the same direction that you're going. You have a girl who comes from a loving family. You have a girl who is doing all the things that she should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you even thinking about this? And I think for me, it was a commitment issue for me. And I think the best advice was like going with somebody who's going in the same direction. For me, I wanted to be a pastor. I knew that. And to be with somebody who didn't want to be involved in ministry at all on that level, probably our marriage would have been rocky as a result of just how much it requires of me to be a pastor of a church. Sarah wanted to be a worship pastor, wanted to be a pastor as well. We were going in the same direction. She came from a loving family. And so I think that advice for me was the best advice. Like he literally, and I texted him this when we got engaged, you're the reason why we got engaged. And I texted him when we got married, it's like, you're the reason why we got married. Obviously God was the main reason, but like having that sort of, again, mentorship, counseling, somebody pushing us in that direction, he was like huge and instrumental in that part of it. So I guess that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but people are going to be upset, but that's okay.
Probably.
It's all right.
And my points were very like Christian. I'm talking to my demographic of people. Don't get yourself in trouble. Be smart. And you know, pick and choose wisely, I would say.
Alexia?
Okay, to wrap it up, we have one last question. How to know the difference between love and lust?
What a question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Lust is about you, and love is about the other person. I think that is the best and most simple answer I could give. One pastor said to me one time, if you're gonna try to outdo your spouse or your significant other, outdo them in service to them. Outdo them in how you serve them. And I think that's it. Like lust is about you, love is about them. And so I think as long as you have your heart and your mind set upon that, like you can't go wrong. Yeah.
That's crazy. That was good. I can't think of anything to add to that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so simple, but like that is crazy though. That's very good.
Yeah. Alexia? Are you done? Alexia's done. She's looking at me all wide-eyed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man, I think to put a bow on this whole thing, I think ultimately God manufactured sex, God created marriage, and God said early in the Old Testament to be fruitful and to multiply. And I think as long as you keep the main thing, dating to be married and to utilize what God has created for the purpose that it was intended to, and to love people, you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, like that's, if we could have any takeaway from people, for people that are watching this podcast, is that dating was created for us to be joined to somebody for life in the confines of marriage, to honor God with our bodies and honor God with how we love them.
Yeah.
And so that's Christian dating for you. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We have no paid sponsorships because we're not that big yet, but eventually someday, hopefully we will. Bro, I watched the BET Awards last night. Everything was sponsored. It was crazy. Every segment was sponsored. It was crazy. So maybe every segment will be sponsored eventually someday. Christian Mingle.
We'll see.
If you want to get better with me, if you want to get on the right page with me again, we'll take a sponsorship. I don't think that's the thing. But anyway, that was another Work Week podcast. We're so excited to have you guys today. Tune in for the future ones that we're going to be having. We can't wait to see you next time.